The cameras zoom in on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez as she steps up to the podium. Her presence is magnetic, her eyes fierce, her posture unwavering. A calculated silence blankets the room, anticipation building with every second. This isn't just another speech, it's the moment everyone's been waiting for. But before she can even speak a word, a voice erupts from the back of the chamber. Ted Cruz. Madam, with all due respect, I think we've heard enough of your radical ideas. The words slice through the air like a dagger. A gasp sweeps through the crowd, a collective moment of disbelief. Ocasio-Cortez pauses, her face momentarily still, as if processing what just happened. Cruz stands, his usual smirk plastered across his face. His tone drips with condescension, a sharp contrast to her composed, unshaken demeanor. The room falls into stunned silence, everyone waiting for Ocasio-Cortez's response. The cameras shift between the two, capturing the tension in the room. The stakes are higher than ever. The next words from either of them could ignite a political firestorm, or end it all. Ocasio-Cortez's lips curl into a subtle smile, but it's the kind of smile that carries weight. She doesn't flinch. Her confidence radiates. The silence grows deeper, but it's not uncomfortable, it's electric. As the microphone hums with static, Ocasio-Cortez finally speaks. Her voice is calm, controlled, yet every word feels like a deliberate strike. I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking, Senator. I believe it's my turn now. The room tightens with a collective intake of breath. It's not just a rebuttal, it's a challenge. Cruz may have thrown the first punch, but Ocasio-Cortez has already landed the first blow. This isn't just a clash of politics, it's a clash of values. The audience feels the tension rise, the weight of history on their shoulders. And with that, the stage is set. What happens next will define the future of American politics. This isn't just another day in Congress. This is the clash of two visions for America, two ideologies that have shaped the direction of the nation for years. Ocasio-Cortez stands for more than just progressive policies, she's a symbol of change, of new ideas, of a future where the American dream isn't reserved for the privileged few but is available to every person who believes in it. She's the voice of the marginalized, the underrepresented, and the voiceless. She's fighting for a future that isn't bogged down by the weight of corporate interests and the powerful elite. Every word she speaks isn't just a political argument, it's a call for justice, for equity, for dignity. And Cruz? Cruz stands for the status quo. For a politics of division, obstruction, and self-interest. He represents a system that thrives on power, on keeping things as they are, on upholding the structures that have only benefited the few while keeping the rest of America in a cycle of stagnation and inequality. He doesn't just represent his party, he embodies the heart of the establishment that has stifled progress for years. His politics are laced with fear, with the need to tear people down in order to prop himself up. He is the epitome of a broken system that refuses to change, that holds the future hostage for the sake of its own survival. The tension in the room grows. This isn't just a debate, it's a battle for the soul of the nation. The stakes are higher than anyone can imagine. If Cruz wins this exchange, it's more than just another legislative victory, it's a reaffirmation of a system that values division over unity, that puts the interests of the rich above the needs of the people. It's a victory for the status quo, for everything that's kept the powerful in charge and left everyday Americans behind. It's a message that progress, justice, and equality don't stand a chance in this country. But if Ocasio-Cortez wins, the implications are just as far-reaching. This isn't just about her defeating Cruz, it's about the power of truth and conviction prevailing over lies and deceit. It's about showing the American people that their voices matter, that change is possible, that a new kind of politics, one rooted in compassion and justice, can and will triumph. It's a signal to the nation that progress is not only necessary, but inevitable. That the fight for equality, for fairness, for a better future, is worth fighting for, and it can win. In that moment, as Ocasio-Cortez meets Cruz's challenge head-on, the room becomes a battlefield. Every eye is on them, every ear straining to hear. The audience at home is waiting for the moment that will shape the political landscape for years to come. What happens next isn't just a matter of political strategy, it's a fight for the direction of the country. It's a choice between two visions, a future where power is taken from the hands of the few and returned to the people, or a future where nothing changes, where the powerful continue to call the shots and the voices of the people are drowned out. This moment matters. This moment could change everything. And it all hinges on what happens next. The clock ticks on, and the world holds its breath. Ted Cruz had spent years in the Senate perfecting the art of political theater. His rise was not built on the pursuit of unity or service to the American people. No, Cruz had always been far more focused on carving a name for himself, manipulating divisive issues to fuel his own political ambitions. His speeches were delivered with the precision of a man who knew exactly how to rally the base, but behind the applause, there was little substance, no deep concern for actual progress. Cruz wasn't interested in solutions, he was interested in power. And power, as he had come to understand, could be seized through chaos. From the moment Cruz entered the national spotlight, he made a name for himself as a master of partisan division. During the 2013 government shutdown, Cruz had orchestrated an 21-hour filibuster, not in the name of policy or progress, but to launch himself into the political stratosphere. The nation watched as he held the floor, speaking passionately about his opposition to the Affordable Care Act. His words were loud, his stance unwavering, but when the dust settled, nothing had been achieved. The government was shut down, and thousands of Americans were left wondering what had really been accomplished. Cruz's grandstanding had done little more than deepen the divide between the political parties, further entrenching the gridlock that had crippled Washington for decades. But that was Cruz's game: create a spectacle, rile up his supporters, and let the consequences fall on everyone else. He thrived on outrage, on stirring the pot, and never seemed to care about the long-term damage it caused. His rhetoric was often drenched in hyperbole, yet empty on solutions. Whether it was his frequent attacks on immigrants, his harsh rhetoric on healthcare reform, or his unabashed defense of the status quo, Cruz rarely missed an opportunity to stir the pot and fan the flames of division. He wasn't concerned with building bridges, his only goal was to burn the ones that might lead to compromise. And yet, Cruz painted himself as a champion of the people. His claims of being a defender of American values, a patriot standing up for the rights of the people, rang hollow when scrutinized against his actions. He used his platform to champion the so-called common man, but his actions told a different story. Cruz was a man of contradictions, a man who claimed to stand up for the voiceless while simultaneously voting in favor of corporate tax cuts that only further enriched the wealthy elite. He railed against big government, all the while supporting policies that benefited the powerful corporations and lobbyists who helped fund his campaigns. His supposed concern for the American people had long been overshadowed by his consistent undermining of any meaningful reform that would have actually helped the very people he claimed to represent. It wasn't just his policies that rang false, it was the way he operated in the halls of power. Cruz didn't build relationships, he burned bridges. He wasn't interested in listening or compromising, he wanted to win, even if it meant dragging everyone down with him. In the Senate, Cruz was known as a lone wolf, more concerned with the applause of his base than with the long-term stability of the nation. He would engage in grand gestures, all for the cameras, but when it came time to get things done, Cruz would often retreat into the shadows, leaving others to pick up the pieces of the chaos he had stirred. In the debate on immigration, for example, Cruz had presented himself as a staunch advocate for border security, painting himself as the protector of American values. Yet, behind the scenes, he had voted for policies that further militarized the border, leading to the suffering of countless immigrant families. His position on the Dreamers, a group of young immigrants who had grown up in America, was equally contradictory. Cruz claimed to care about their future, but his vote spoke louder than his words. He stood in the way of legislation that could have offered them a pathway to citizenship, effectively condemning them to an uncertain future. Cruz's actions were no longer just politically opportunistic, they were dangerous. He'd made a career out of undermining progress, using every opportunity to stoke fear, build walls, literal and metaphorical, and separate the American people. He wasn't interested in unity, in finding common ground, or in serving the people. Cruz wanted to be the loudest voice in the room, the one everyone listened to, the one who controlled the narrative. And yet, there was something deeply ironic in Cruz's posture. He often spoke about the sanctity of the American dream, but his actions said otherwise. He spoke of protecting American values, but his policies harmed the very people who embodied those values, the immigrants who arrived with nothing but hope, the working-class families struggling to make ends meet, the marginalized communities fighting for a fair shot at a better life. In that moment, as Cruz stood there in front of Ocasio-Cortez, the facade began to crack. His rehearsed lines, his divisive rhetoric, and his relentless attacks on anyone who dared challenge him, all of it seemed shallow, exposed for what it was, an elaborate performance built on contradictions. Ocasio-Cortez wasn't just standing up to Cruz, she was standing up to everything Cruz represented, everything he had built his career on. This wasn't a fight between two politicians. This was a fight for the future of the country, one built on division and obstruction versus one built on unity, progress, and the hope for a better tomorrow. The stage was set, and Cruz, for all his bravado, was beginning to show cracks in his carefully constructed armor. From the streets of the Bronx to the halls of Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's journey has never been one of privilege or easy choices. It's a story rooted in struggle, struggle against the system, struggle for identity, and most profoundly, struggle for justice. But throughout it all, there's been something deeper driving her, an unyielding belief in a better America, one where everyone, no matter their background or circumstances, has a fair chance to thrive. It's a belief forged from her own experiences, from growing up in a neighborhood that faced systemic neglect and poverty, and from seeing firsthand the impact of a government that failed to serve the people. Born to Puerto Rican parents, Ocasio-Cortez was raised in a family that valued hard work, integrity, and community. Her mother, a teacher, and her father, an architect, instilled in her a sense of responsibility, a belief that it wasn't enough to simply succeed on your own, but that the true measure of success was how you lifted up others along the way. They taught her that the only way to change the world was by challenging the systems that perpetuated inequality, by standing up for those who didn't have the power to speak for themselves. But the reality of growing up in the Bronx was harsh. As Ocasio-Cortez would later reflect, the Bronx wasn't just a place, it was a metaphor for the struggles many communities face in America. The schools were underfunded. Opportunities for economic advancement were few. There was a pervasive sense that people from neighborhoods like hers would never have access to the resources or the power to make real change. Still, she pressed on, determined to defy the odds. She attended Boston University, where she majored in economics and international relations, and it was there that her eyes were opened to the broader systems of inequality, the ways in which wealth and power were hoarded by the few, and how policies were often designed to keep the majority in their place. This was no longer just an academic concern for her, it was a deeply personal one. She understood that the systems keeping people like her, and people from communities like hers, stuck in cycles of poverty and disenfranchisement weren't accidents, they were designed. They were built to last. Graduating from college, Ocasio-Cortez could have taken any number of paths. She had the credentials, the education, and the connections to find success in the corporate world or in a comfortable government job. But something called her back to the Bronx. She returned to work as a bartender, while also becoming deeply involved in grassroots organizing. Her days were spent in the communities she grew up in, talking to people, listening to their stories, and learning about their struggles. The economic inequality, the rising rent, the lack of health care, it all weighed heavily on her. But even more than that, the lack of political representation for these communities was the most glaring issue. The system was failing people, and those people were left to fend for themselves, while those in power did nothing. In 2016, as the country was gripped by the momentum of the Bernie Sanders campaign, Ocasio-Cortez found herself inspired. Sanders' message of democratic socialism, of systemic change, of fighting for working people, resonated with her deeply. Here was a politician speaking not just to the issues she cared about, but to the root causes of inequality. He wasn't interested in incremental reforms, he was interested in dismantling the systems that were rigged against the people. And that was exactly what Ocasio-Cortez wanted to do. She became one of the core members of the Bernie Sanders movement, working tirelessly to register voters and mobilize communities. It was in this space that Ocasio-Cortez found her calling. Politics, she realized, wasn't about serving the powerful, it was about serving the people. It was about making sure the voices of the unheard were finally amplified, ensuring that policies were crafted with empathy and integrity, not profit margins in mind. In 2018, Ocasio-Cortez made the fateful decision to run for Congress. At the time, the incumbent was Joe Crowley, a long-serving Democrat who was well known in Washington but had become disconnected from the needs of his district. Ocasio-Cortez's campaign was nothing short of an underdog story. She had no money, no political backing, and very little in terms of traditional campaign infrastructure. What she did have, though, was an army of people who were tired of the same old politics, people who were ready for something new. She didn't need the party machine to win, she had the people. Her message was clear: it was time for a change, for bold, progressive ideas that would address the economic and social issues affecting her community. She spoke about universal healthcare, affordable housing, and climate change, issues that weren't just abstract policy goals but real-life challenges her neighbors faced every day. In her eyes, this wasn't about winning an election, it was about changing the way the country thought about its future. It was about empowering the working class, fighting for the marginalized, and ensuring that every voice had a place in the national conversation. When Ocasio-Cortez defeated Crowley in the Democratic primary, it sent shockwaves through the political establishment. It wasn't just a victory, it was a declaration of war against a broken system. She was proof that a new generation of leaders was ready to rise, that the political status quo was no longer acceptable, and that the American people, especially the working class and the marginalized, deserved better. Her rise to Congress wasn't just about her success, it was about the success of every single person who had ever been told that they didn't matter, that they didn't have a place in the halls of power. Ocasio-Cortez represented something far bigger than herself. She represented the future of a country that could be better, that could be more just, that could finally live up to its ideals. But this fight wasn't going to be easy. The powers that be, the ones who had benefited from the broken system, weren't going to let go without a fight. And as she stood across from Ted Cruz, Ocasio-Cortez knew this was only the beginning. Her resolve had been built through years of struggle, and her commitment to justice was now being tested on the highest stage. The stakes were no longer just personal. They were national. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for every person who had ever been told they didn't belong in the halls of power. And in that moment, Ocasio-Cortez was more ready than ever to make her stand. The air in the chamber grows thicker as Cruz steps forward, his eyes narrowing, lips twisting into a mock grin. He sees an opportunity, one to humiliate, to overpower, to remind everyone who's in charge. With the microphone in hand, he raises his voice, speaking over Ocasio-Cortez in an attempt to drown her out. "We've heard enough of this progressive fantasy," Cruz sneers, casting a scornful glance at the crowd. "The fact is, the American people don't want to be told how to live their lives by people who have no concept of what hard work and real sacrifice are." His words echo through the hall, a sharp rebuke aimed at the very essence of what Ocasio-Cortez represents. He paints her as an idealist, a dreamer who's out of touch with reality. And for a brief moment, it seems like the room might fall into line with Cruz, nodding along with the familiar talking points. But Ocasio-Cortez remains unmoved. Her eyes are locked on Cruz, and though the tension in the air is palpable, she doesn't flinch. She stands tall, composed, as if every word he throws her way is nothing but another challenge to overcome. When he finishes, she doesn't rush to speak. She takes a beat, allowing his words to hang in the air, but also letting the silence speak for itself. The crowd holds its breath, waiting for her response. There's no fluster, no hint of fear, only calm, collected confidence. "You're right, Senator Cruz," she begins, her voice steady, unwavering. The American people do want to be free. They want to be free from an economy that forces them to choose between healthcare and rent. They want to be free from the shackles of a system that enriches the few while leaving the rest behind. And they're tired of people like you who, year after year, preach about freedom while doing everything in your power to keep them in chains. The room falls silent, and for a split second, Cruz's facade falters. His lips twitch, his posture stiffens as if he wasn't expecting such a calm and piercing counter. His eyes narrow, and a flicker of frustration dances behind his otherwise controlled expression. He wasn't prepared for this. He's used to dominating debates, pushing people into corners with his sharp rhetoric and forceful voice. But Ocasio-Cortez isn't backing down. Cruz leans into the microphone again, trying to reassert control over the conversation, but there's a slight tremor in his voice now. His words come out faster, with less conviction, as if he's trying to regain the upper hand. Is this what you call progress? A government that runs on handouts? That spends taxpayer dollars on a pipe dream? Cruz scoffs, gesturing toward the audience, his hands waving through the air. You want to destroy the very system that's given this country its strength. That's your idea of change? Ocasio-Cortez listens quietly, her arms folded across her chest. There's no rush to reply. She's patient, knowing that the more Cruz talks, the more he digs his own hole. His anger is becoming apparent, his control slipping with each word. I don't want to destroy anything, she responds calmly, leaning slightly into the microphone. I want to fix it. You're so obsessed with the idea that this country's greatness depends on a few people having more power, more money, more control, while the rest of us are left to fend for ourselves. I'm here to tell you it doesn't. True greatness is measured by how we treat the people who need us most. It's about lifting others up, not pushing them down to protect your own interests. Cruz's jaw clenches. He's visibly rattled now, his voice rising as he shoots back with more venom. You want to talk about lifting people up? Tell that to the families who will be footing the bill for your socialist agenda. You want to bankrupt the nation, just like every other liberal politician who's come before you. The crowd murmurs, some nodding in agreement with Cruz, while others shake their heads in disbelief. Cruz is losing the room, and he knows it. His frustration is mounting, but he tries to mask it with sarcasm, as if mocking her will somehow shift the tide in his favor. Ocasio-Cortez, however, remains composed. Her response isn't one of anger, but of quiet strength. Senator, I'm not asking for a handout, she says, her voice unwavering. I'm asking for the kind of future where no one has to choose between feeding their family and paying for a doctor's visit. I'm asking for a country that puts people first, not corporations. And yes, it's going to cost money. But the cost of doing nothing, the cost of letting the wealth gap grow wider, of letting people die because they can't afford basic care, that's the real cost. You've spent years defending a broken system, Senator. But I'm not afraid to build something new. There's a shift in the room now. Cruz's words seem to lose their sting, his rhetoric falling flat against the weight of Ocasio-Cortez's conviction. His face tightens, a mixture of anger and disbelief as he watches her stand there, unflinching, resolute. The contrast between them couldn't be clearer. Cruz, once the picture of calculated control, is now flustered and frustrated. Ocasio-Cortez, calm and focused, is every bit the image of unwavering determination. And in that moment, it becomes obvious, Ocasio-Cortez isn't just playing the game. She's changing the rules. The tension in the room has reached a boiling point. Cruz's voice continues to rise, his hands gesturing wildly, but Ocasio-Cortez doesn't flinch. She stands there, composed, waiting for the right moment. Cruz had tried to overwhelm her with his usual political theatrics, but she wasn't here for the show. She was here for the truth. And the truth, as it turned out, was a weapon she wielded with precision. The silence that had settled after Cruz's last, desperate jab hangs thick in the air. Ocasio-Cortez leans forward just slightly, adjusting the microphone with a deliberate calmness that makes every person in the room hold their breath. It's as though they all know, this is the moment. The moment where everything changes. She starts slow, her words measured and controlled. Senator, you speak about the cost of progress, about what people will have to pay for the future I envision, but you've been in Washington long enough to know exactly where the real cost lies. She lets the silence fall again, her gaze piercing through Cruz. The crowd leans in. You're right, change costs. It always does, she continues, her tone unwavering. But let's talk about the cost of what you've defended for so long. The cost of your silence, your obstruction, your unwillingness to act. Her voice has a weight now, every word calculated to land where it hurts. Cruz shifts uncomfortably, his gaze flicking from her to the crowd. He wasn't expecting this, he thought he had the upper hand, that his rhetoric would dominate the floor as it always had. But now, he's visibly rattled. Ocasio-Cortez doesn't let up. You claim to be a protector of the American people, Senator, but let's not forget what you've been defending all these years. You've fought tooth and nail to protect tax cuts for billionaires, while people in your own state, people you claim to represent, suffer in the streets. The rich get richer, and the poor, well, the poor are left behind. The room stirs at the mention of Texas, where Cruz had long positioned himself as the champion of the state's working class. She presses on. You've allowed corporations to dictate policy, to mold the very fabric of our laws, while everyday Americans are left fighting for scraps. You stand there, pretending to care about hardworking families, but your record shows otherwise. Your policies don't uplift the people. They keep them in chains. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Cruz's face tightens, his jaw clenching as Ocasio-Cortez dismantles his narrative piece by piece. But she's just getting started. Now let's talk about healthcare, she continues, her voice growing steadier, more commanding. You've spent years blocking any attempt to make healthcare accessible for everyone. And yet, you have the audacity to stand here and accuse me of pushing a socialist agenda? Senator, your healthcare plan is a dream for insurance companies and a nightmare for the people who can't afford their life-saving medications. You voted to strip millions of their healthcare, all while protecting the interests of your corporate donors. Cruz opens his mouth to respond, but Ocasio-Cortez raises a hand, silencing him. She's not finished. I know what you'll say next, the free market will fix it. She tilts her head slightly, her eyes narrowing as she fixes Cruz with a look of quiet disbelief. But we both know that's a lie. The free market you so desperately cling to has never worked for the people it was supposed to serve. It's failed us time and time again. The American people are not a commodity to be traded on the stock market, they are not products for corporations to exploit. The very market you defend has driven families into bankruptcy over hospital bills, denied treatment to the sick, and left millions uninsured. And you stand here, defending it. You want to talk about costs, Senator? The real cost is in the lives lost, the people whose needs are ignored for the sake of profits. The words hang in the air like a heavy weight, and for the first time, Cruz's confident posture falters. His face flushes, his gaze shifting uneasily from her to the audience. The room is silent, but the tension is palpable. Ocasio-Cortez's words have pierced through his defenses. He's no longer the dominant voice in the room, he's just another man caught in a lie. Ocasio-Cortez doesn't let up. And you, Senator, have had the privilege of hiding behind your political power. You've been insulated from the very system you defend, while the rest of America has paid the price. You've never had to worry about healthcare, about your children's education, or about what your neighbors will eat tomorrow. You've lived in a bubble, protected by wealth, by status, by a system you've helped create. But I'm here to tell you, no more. The people are awake now. We know the game. And we will change it. The room erupts. Applause fills the space, echoing off the walls. But Ocasio-Cortez doesn't even flinch. She stands, poised, like a warrior in the aftermath of battle. Cruz, on the other hand, is visibly stunned. His lips tremble slightly, and his posture sags as he tries to recover. His confidence, once so towering, has cracked. He stands there, caught off guard, unable to respond. The contrast is stark. Cruz, who had once been the master of the debate, the one who could command the room with his rhetoric, is now outmatched. Ocasio-Cortez, calm, collected, and resolute, has delivered her final blow. Cruz opens his mouth as if to speak, but no words come out. His eyes flicker nervously, his facade crumbling with every second. It's over. The room is still buzzing with energy, but it's clear that Cruz's influence has evaporated. Ocasio-Cortez has won this round, not just with facts, but with her unwavering belief in the cause she represents. The battle for the future of America is far from over, but in this moment, she's emerged victorious. The applause grows louder, and Cruz remains silent, his face pale, his eyes darting around the room as if looking for a way out. But there's no escaping this. The truth has been spoken, and there's no turning back. Ocasio-Cortez's message has been delivered. And in that moment, everyone in the room, and everyone watching, knows, the world is changing. The silence in the room lingers, but the impact of the exchange reverberates far beyond the walls of Congress. Within moments, the ripple effect begins to spread. Social media is flooded with reactions from every corner of the country. News outlets, commentators, and political pundits scramble to weigh in on the unforgettable clash between Ocasio-Cortez and Cruz. #AOC wins begins trending on Twitter within minutes of the debate's conclusion. The hashtag is everywhere, splashed across news feeds, retweeted by thousands, and plastered across the screens of every major media outlet. The world can't stop talking about what just happened. As Ocasio-Cortez's words sink in, so does the collective realization, she didn't just win an argument. She won the moment. She had dismantled Cruz with grace and precision, using his own contradictions against him. The message is clear, the establishment is vulnerable, and the people are paying attention. Celebrities, already vocal in their support for Ocasio-Cortez, flock to social media to amplify the moment. Actress and activist Kerry Washington tweets, "There are moments that define the future." This was one of them. #AOC wins, accompanied by a series of applause emojis. Her tweet goes viral, retweeted over 100,000 times within the hour. Other stars from Hollywood to sports personalities follow suit, flooding their platforms with praise for Ocasio-Cortez's poise and conviction. It's a cultural moment as much as a political one. But the most powerful endorsements come from the people themselves. Ordinary citizens, who have been quiet spectators of the political games for years, now have a voice, and they're using it. The hashtag gains traction across every demographic, from working-class communities to progressive activists. Tweets flood in from across the country. Finally, someone who speaks the truth. #AOC wins. Cruz got destroyed. This is why we need fresh voices in Washington. #AOC wins. AOC just dropped the mic power to the people. #AOC wins. The response is overwhelming. People are emboldened by her victory, her success is their success. She has become more than just a representative of her district, she is now the face of a broader movement. The mic drop moment, once confined to a single debate, has transformed into a rallying cry for justice, equity, and real political change. Political commentators and pundits, who had long dismissed Ocasio-Cortez as a radical, now have no choice but to take her seriously. Chris Matthews, MSNBC host, opens his show with a look back at the exchange. What we witnessed today was nothing short of a political earthquake. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez didn't just win this debate, she delivered a blow to the heart of the establishment. Cruz, for all his bluster, was completely outclassed. This is a moment that will be remembered as the turning point for progressive politics. On Fox News, the commentary is more critical but no less charged. Cruz, despite his usual bombast, was unable to match Ocasio-Cortez in the most crucial way, substance. For all his attempts at political grandstanding, he couldn't argue with the facts. That's what America is waking up to today, one analyst notes, reluctantly acknowledging the shift in the political landscape. But it isn't just the pundits who weigh in. Cruz's political allies begin to distance themselves, unsure of how to spin the loss. Ted Cruz, once a titan of conservative politics, now finds himself under attack from his own party. Conservative media outlets run headlines like, "Cruz gets schooled by Ocasio-Cortez," and "The Fall of Cruz," when rhetoric meets reality. Even Cruz's supporters start to question his ability to lead. Calls for more aggressive reform within his own party gain momentum. Behind closed doors, the whispers grow louder. Cruz had been outplayed, outsmarted, and most critically, outclassed. A political figure who once thrived on confrontation is now being seen as weak, a relic of a bygone era of divisive politics. Meanwhile, in Ocasio-Cortez's corner, the momentum keeps building. She doesn't retreat into silence after the moment, instead, she amplifies it. Within hours, her team releases a statement that hits the heart of the matter: "This isn't about me. It's about all of us, working people, marginalized communities, those whose voices have been ignored for too long. Today was a win for the people. This is only the beginning." And it isn't just her words that matter, it's the actions that follow. Calls for Medicare for all, affordable housing, and free public education gain new energy. People rally around her policies with renewed vigor, seeing in her a politician who doesn't just talk about change but embodies it. The wind beneath the progressive wing of the Democratic Party strengthens, as voters who had been skeptical of her vision begin to rally behind her leadership. The ripple effect doesn't stop there. Across the political spectrum, leaders take note. In states like California, New York, and Texas, progressive candidates gain traction, inspired by the way Ocasio-Cortez has redefined what it means to fight for the people. Young people, who had once felt disconnected from the political process, are now engaged, energized, and ready to take action. The media landscape itself shifts. What had once been an echo chamber of corporate media and establishment politicians is now teeming with voices calling for reform, for a break from the status quo. Ocasio-Cortez's message of hope, justice, and equity becomes the rallying cry for a new generation of politicians and activists. They see in her a model for how to challenge the old guard, how to fight not just for political office, but for the very soul of the nation. And it isn't just in the US where the shockwaves are felt. Internationally, the debate becomes a touchstone for political movements. Progressive parties around the world draw inspiration from Ocasio-Cortez's words and her quiet yet unshakable resolve. In Europe, Latin America, and beyond, politicians are citing her victory as proof that change isn't just possible, it's necessary. In the days that follow, the hashtag continues to trend. News stories are written, social media posts continue to flood timelines, and the people are energized, their belief in the power of the democratic process reignited. Ocasio-Cortez's mic drop moment has transformed her from a rising star to a political force, one who has already begun to reshape the future of American politics. What began as a single exchange has now become the centerpiece of a larger movement. And Cruz, once confident in his ability to control the narrative, now finds himself relegated to the sidelines, left to wonder how it all slipped away. This moment, their moment, has ignited something much bigger than a political debate. It has started a movement that will reverberate for years to come. And it's just the beginning. In the wake of the explosive confrontation, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's message resonated beyond the debate hall. It became a defining moment in the ongoing battle for the soul of the nation. As the media swirled with analysis, as hashtags continued to trend, and as the nation buzzed with conversation, Ocasio-Cortez didn't just win a political debate, she won the hearts and minds of millions. She had reframed the discussion, turning it from a clash between two politicians into a larger discussion about truth, justice, and the moral duty we all have to fight for what is right. The victory wasn't about political ideology, it wasn't about a particular party or agenda. It was about integrity. It was about standing up for the truth, no matter the consequences, and refusing to let fear, intimidation, or personal gain dictate the direction of the nation. In the weeks following the debate, Ocasio-Cortez's message echoed across the political landscape. She had made it clear that this wasn't just about winning, in the traditional sense. It wasn't about defeating a political opponent or scoring points for her team. No, this was about a deeper truth, the kind of truth that transcends partisan lines and challenges every politician, every person, to examine their own motivations and choices. She stood on the floor of Congress, looking directly into the camera, her words simple but powerful: "We are not here to serve the powerful, we are here to serve the people." The room fell silent, as if the weight of those words sank in. The words didn't just carry the weight of her own campaign or platform, they carried the weight of generations of people who had been left behind by the system. She reminded the country that the role of a politician was not to protect the status quo or to safeguard the interests of the wealthy few. It was, instead, to protect the most vulnerable, to fight for those whose voices had been suppressed for far too long. The government, Ocasio-Cortez explained, was not meant to serve the elite, it was meant to serve the people, all people. That was the foundational promise of democracy. The government should be a tool for justice, a mechanism for righting the wrongs, not perpetuating them. In that moment, Ocasio-Cortez's words carried the weight of history. Her words reflected the struggles of those who had fought for equality, for civil rights, for healthcare, for education. She wasn't just challenging Ted Cruz's policies, she was challenging the entire structure that allowed politicians to ignore the needs of the people in favor of preserving their power. Her message wasn't just for the people of her district or the progressives who already supported her, it was for everyone who believed in fairness, in justice, in the idea that this country could be better. And this wasn't just a personal victory, it was a win for justice, for the idea that the fight for what's right, no matter how difficult, is worth every ounce of effort. It was a victory for every community that had been told their struggles didn't matter, for every family who had been told their needs were secondary to the interests of the few. It was a message that the fight for equity, whether in healthcare, education, or economic opportunity, was far from over, but it was a fight that could be won. In the days after the debate, Ocasio-Cortez's words continued to inspire. Her bravery, her clarity, and her unwavering commitment to truth became a rallying cry for those who had long felt marginalized. People from all walks of life, immigrants, workers, students, activists, felt seen, heard, and empowered. Ocasio-Cortez had shown them that their voices mattered, that they had the power to challenge a system that had too long ignored them. She had redefined what it meant to be a politician, showing that the true measure of leadership wasn't about popularity or power, it was about integrity, compassion, and the courage to stand up for the right thing, no matter the opposition. The backlash against Cruz was swift and unforgiving. His supporters began to question his ability to lead, his credibility faltered, and his influence began to wane. It was a public defeat, yes, but it was more than that, it was the beginning of a shift, a quiet revolution in American politics. The shift away from divisiveness, from fear-mongering, and from the tired tactics of old. In Ocasio-Cortez, people saw the future, a future where compassion and integrity would replace the politics of greed and division. And it wasn't just the political establishment that felt the weight of her words. The people felt it too. In schools, in town halls, in living rooms across the country, conversations sparked by Ocasio-Cortez's words turned into a national movement. The fight for justice, for equity, for a better future wasn't just something politicians talked about, it was something everyone could take part in. Her victory wasn't just about a political moment, it was about what it symbolized, the power of truth, the moral duty to fight for what's right, and the undeniable impact that one voice, grounded in integrity, can have on the world. Ocasio-Cortez's words rang clear and true, not just for her, but for the nation. This is not just a fight for today, this is a fight for the future, and together, we will make sure that future is one of justice, compassion, and opportunity for all. In that moment, the world knew, this fight was just beginning, and it wasn't one Ocasio-Cortez was going to back down from. And for the millions who were watching, the message was clear, you too have the power to stand up, to fight for what's right, and to change the world. The only question was, who would stand with her? What we witnessed in that moment was more than just a political exchange. It was a reminder that the fight for justice, for truth, is never easy. The road to a better future is paved with challenges, obstacles, and moments where the powerful will do everything they can to maintain the status quo. But Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez showed us that the fight is always worth it. Her words, her courage, and her unwavering commitment to the people serve as a beacon of hope for anyone who believes that a better future is possible. It's a message for all of us, no matter where we come from or where we're headed, that the power to create change lies in our hands. Change is not reserved for the elite, it is the birthright of the people, and it's up to us to claim it. Now, the question is, will you stand with her? Will you stand for justice, for fairness, for a future where everyone has a voice? It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to think that one person can't make a difference. But look at what Alexandria did. One voice, standing firm against the tide, can change everything. It's time to take action. Subscribe, share this message, and join the movement for a better future. This fight isn't over, it's just beginning, and we need every single one of you. Together, we can create a country that serves all its people, not just the powerful few. The time to act is now. Will you be a part of the change?